What up, y'all? This is Tracy from Nerd Squish, and today we are talking about the 1931 Universal Monster classic, Frankenstein.
So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now is your chance to, reform you. It's alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
This is the fourth video in our Universal Monster series, and I am so excited to be getting back into this. If you'd like to see the 3 previous videos that we did for Universal Monster reviews, I will have them all linked down below, and you should definitely hit that subscribe button so you'll see even more that come out in the future. But for now, let's get on into this movie. So where do we even start talking about Frankenstein? It's so iconic! So iconic. So let's break it down and talk about a little summary of Frankenstein. Granted, if you don't know the story of Frankenstein, I'm a little ashamed. What? Frankenstein is all about Dr. Henry Frankenstein, who figures out how to bring the dead back to life. He goes about stealing body parts any way he can, whether it's from recent burials or recently hung men, or if you need a brain, you're gonna go to a school where they're teaching about the human body, and you're gonna steal the brain there because, hey, it's jarred up, it's ready to go. You don't have to do the dirty work. Who doesn't love that? So, on one stormy night, they lift your boy up, they do a little boom, a dead, stitched together body is brought to life, and Frankenstein's monster is born. However, they didn't use a normal brain. They used an abnormal, if you know what I'm talking about. They used the brain of a deceased criminal. So, with that comes a little, some problems, some situations. When this monster comes to life, he's obviously confused. He's looking around like, say, bruh, I don't know what's going on. Can I get a cookie? It's very confusing. I get it. Naturally, chaos ensues, so much to where he is killing people left and right, including a little girl, although that one was not his fault. That was an accident. And after the death of the little girl, of course, the townsfolk decide we gonna start, some chaos and some riots, and we're bringing this down. We're shutting it down. And then, the movie ends. So let's talk about some behind the scenes on this classic movie. So this movie came out in 1931, the same year that Dracula came out. Now, they had intentions for Bela Lugosi to play the monster. So on the set of Dracula, they filmed test shots of him playing this character. But Bela Lugosi was like, wait a minute, I'm a Broadway star. I am like Bela Lugosi, I'm Dracula. You want me to take on a role that has no talking and has makeup? You're gonna cover this beautiful face? And he was like, nah, I ain't doing it. He thought he was too big for that. So Universal was like, well, okay, what do we do from here? Where do we go from here? We need our monster. This is a huge part of this movie. So at Universal Studios, in the lunchroom, they were filming a gangster movie or doing auditions. And lo and behold, Boris Karloff was there in his finest suit. And they came up to him. They saw his interesting looking face and they said, you You want to be a monster in our new monster movie? Although he was a little insulted because apparently he was, he thought he looked really good that day. He had his new suit on. He was looking fresh. He was like, I'm going to get a role. I'm going to be in the movies. So he was a little insulted that they were like, that guy's going to be the monster. But as somebody who was already in his 40s and, really trying to dive into the acting world, he wasn't going to turn down a role. So that is how we got Boris Karloff in this iconic role. It's interesting because Karloff never speaks in this role. There's some grunting and stuff. This dude beneath 48 pounds of costuming and, not being able to speak conveys so much emotion. And he's such a heartwarming character. I think most people can kind of relate to him. Specifically, in the scene with the little girl. The famous scene where there's a little girl that is sitting by a lake or a pond, and she is approached by the monster, and she's a little child, and she's like, hey, this guy's gonna come play with me. Tight. So she's got her little flowers, and she gives him one, and he sits down, and he thinks this is great, because he's like, hey, this kid's cool. She's not locking me in a room like my dad. She's like, oh, look, throws the flowers in the water. Boom, boom, and they float. So he does the same, and then he runs out of flowers, and he goes, well, hey, look, this little girl's here. Picks her up, throws her in the water, and she drowns. The little girl that was played by Marilyn Harris, they had a fear that she was going to be really scared of Karloff and all of his makeup. They gathered up everybody into one area, and then they were going to caravan off to where they were shooting. And she saw Karloff in his makeup and ran up to him. And she looked up at him and said, may I ride with you? To which Karloff responded, would you, darling? That is so, the sweetest little thing. And apparently, Karloff just had this heart like that. He was a kind person. And that really shines through in this role. Even to the point where they thought your girl Mae Clark that plays Elizabeth, she was kind of freaked out. She was like, man, I don't know about this Frankenstein dude. This is gonna scare me. Can I handle this? And she voiced this with Karloff. So he told her in the scene that they filmed together, he's like, when off camera, I'm gonna lift a pinky and I'm gonna wave to you with this pinky. So no matter what, under all this scary makeup and whatever, even though you can't tell, it's me and you're safe. So returning back to the makeup, one of the most iconic things about this movie is Boris Karloff's makeup that was done by Jack Pierce. And y'all know Jack Pierce is the king of the monster makeup. He just did it, and he did it right. And that's why so many years later, we're still talking about this, and we are still mimicking it in so many movies today. It took Jack Pierce 4 hours to put all of that makeup on Karloff. So obviously the makeup is known for the flat head, the, one heavy-lidded eye, the very sunken cheeks. But what's super interesting is that Karloff actually suggested while they were doing test runs and stuff, he was like, hey, yo, Pierce, I have a bridge, a dental bridge, and I could just take this bridge out and it'll add to that sunken look. So if you notice on one side of his face, it's much more sunken in than the other. Now, obviously, this movie had a lot of controversy when it came out. We all know, even to this day, in 2021, when I am filming this, there are still people in this world that are very against horror movies and think they have all these ulterior motives and they're ruining the youth. The youth are corrupted. They were so scared of this movie that when it originally released, it was banned in Kansas because they thought it exhibited cruelty and tended to debase morals. So this movie is definitely, it's old and you can tell, similar to Dracula, it's 1931. People are still getting used to the talkie films. So the acting is not 100%. Obviously, there are shining stars within what I just said. Boris Karloff doesn't need a script. He doesn't need much of his face. He's got all that makeup and he can't say anything, but he delivers a role that we all know and love. And hello, that's amazing. And then I really, really, really love Colin Clive as Dr. Frankenstein. Who does not love the scene where he is bringing the monster to life, and it's alive, it's alive, it's alive. A warning was added in the beginning of this movie saying that it will shock, horrify, terrify you. And if you can't handle this, then you need to get up and go. You need to leave. This ain't for you, boo-boo. And they added that as a proactive measure towards these religious groups that got mad about the line where Colin Clive, playing Dr. Frankenstein, screams, "I know what it's like to be God." People thought that was blasphemous, it was terrible or whatever, and they kind of did that to save their own butts. But this is the only Universal Monsters movie that has a warning like that in front of it. So all in all, Frankenstein is an excellent, iconic, classic monster movie. The movie in itself is not my favorite Universal Monster movie because I think there's a lot of confusing things with it, like how when the girl drowns and the dad, who didn't have time to play with his little girl, didn't watch her, was like, "Oh, she was murdered. I'm carrying her through the town and she was murdered." Bro, you did not see it. You didn't see anything. You didn't have time to play with her, and some strange man was like hanging out with her and threw her in the water, and you didn't see anything. So I don't know how he came to this conclusion. That's kind of weird. And like the ending is also weird. I personally think they should have ended it where the building's burning and you just kind of leave it at that. We burned up. The movie's over. But they had to add that whole weird end part where you see Frankenstein and he's like in his bed being taken care of, and then it just kind of like ends. Like, it doesn't really make sense. But I love Boris Karloff in this role. He plays such a sweet, relatable character that you know he doesn't want to do a lot of the things he's doing, but he doesn't know any better, and he's literally born into life and locked into a room and not dealt with, and he didn't ask for that. And so it's kind of heartbreaking, and I really feel like people feel for this character. And between that and his super interesting, iconic makeup, that's why this movie is still talked about all these years later. In the comments down below, let me know what you think about Frankenstein. Is this your favorite Universal Monster movie? If you guys want to see more Universal Monster reviews, please hit that subscribe button. We have a couple more coming your way, and they're gonna be tight. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll check you nerds later.